different. It was shot in late 1994 in the government's own backyard, the super-secret Nellis test range in southern Nevada. Had the tape not been smuggled out, it might well have been classified by authorities. The base employees in this report appear at considerable professional risk, and therefore their identities have been heavily disguised.
21.3 degrees, 18.5 degrees elevation.
Remote-controlled cameras monitor the 7,700 square miles of airspace above the Nellis range. The cameras record fighter jet training, tactical exercises, and in at least one case, this UFO. The video, from a tracking location known only as S-30, was fed into Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. Personnel there monitor what is supposed to be classified data about aircraft runs over the 3 million acres of desert that make up the Nellis range. An unknown aircraft making its way onto the complex, says aerospace journalist Bill Sweetman, is not considered standard operating procedure.
I don't think you'd really see many objects wandering in by accident. They're very, very careful to ensure that sort of thing doesn't happen. The potential for serious accident if somebody is really straying into the range is very, very serious.
And yet, something obviously did stray in, and it frightened the camera's remote control operators.
This craft shows up, and it's like they're playing with kids. It's like, do whatever they want and buy now. It's scary.
I've never seen anything like this before. This was my first encounter seeing anything of this nature. And I've been working the ranges for close to 10 years.
It seemed to move in whichever direction it wanted to go whenever it wanted to, contrary to any aircraft that I've seen in the past.
Chuck DeCaro is a former member of U.S. Special Forces, specializing in state-of-the-art military technology. He has analyzed hours of video footage of supposed UFOs, debunking many. But he has never seen anything like the Nellis UFO.
In my first look at that tape, I said, wow. And I continue to say, wow. There are only 3 things that could be on that tape. One is a very elaborate and very expensive hoax. I don't think that's what we're seeing. The second is some kind of a black project, a secret project that has some very unusual aerodynamic characteristics. And the third, if you can eliminate all those aerodynamic answers, could be a true unknown. And if that is an unknown, if you can come to that conclusion, you get a pretty interesting piece of history right there.
To rule out the possibility of a hoax, Sightings asked a government subcontractor who uses the same image analysis computer as the Department of Defense to analyze the S-30 tapes. He has asked to remain anonymous.
The video appears to be genuine. Specifically, it was taken by contractor personnel that are operating tracking sites for the United States Air Force.
Could the Nellis UFO be a rare glimpse at a military black project? The stealth bomber is one former black project tested in Nevada, and early on misidentified by civilians as a UFO. But our sources insist that when black projects are tested, the tracking cameras are deactivated.
The camera operators in the tracking sites are not exposed to those
far cry from that object.
Chuck DeCaro and the government video engineer compared notes on the possibility that this UFO was a black project.
What's startling about it is that it doesn't resemble any shapes that I would know immediately. And that's why I thought it was interesting to start with.
It almost appears to be like spherical in the center and with an appendage on the bottom and on the top. You don't.
Let me take that overpowering bright and blue shit.
I don't see any evidence of rotors.
No. And also the startling thing is it seems to change shape.
Another anomalous characteristic of the object is its apparent ability to change shape instantaneously.
The physical profile of the object changes almost frame to frame. And sometimes it appears almost to be a fuzzy, gassy cloud. In some portions of the video, it appears to be several spherical objects surrounding a dark mass.
Electromagnetic. That's why.
To get a better look at the flight characteristics of the Nellis UFO, Sightings consulted with Chip Peterson, a video processing expert. He stabilized and enhanced several minutes of the S-30 video.
I basically moved each frame, and you can see the frames actually moving now, showing the degree that I had to move the image in order to keep this object stable in the center.
The stabilized image clearly shows the odd shape of the object shifting and turning in the sky.
I then took the numbers one by one and reconstructed the flight path, and that's the only way I could determine what the actual motion was.
Go back,
and I recreated that in 3 dimensions.
Hold on.
I then took the numbers one by one and reconstructed.
Let me see that again. Look at the electromagnetic field around that thing. Some electromagnetic bubble. I knew you could see that in other videos. Just people are not paying attention. They don't have the eye. So this thing swirls. It goes like that. You can see it's emitting from a medium. There is another part of that electromagnetic thing right down here. It's very visible, especially when you take the brightness out. And look, the thing just curled up here. It's doing that here and here. It just transformed itself into a spherical swirls, whatever. It started out as a saucer. Check it out. That's how the thing started as a saucer. Now look what it turned into.
Constructed the flight path, and that's the only way I could determine what the actual motion was, and I recreated that in 3 dimensions. It's initially heading away from the camera, and it abruptly changes, and during this phase, the range is increasing. It's actually going away from the camera, and at this point, it changes direction. Wind wouldn't do that. It wouldn't change that abruptly, and it wouldn't follow a constant radius throughout this entire portion here. It's all at constant distance from the camera. It's as if it's observing the ground position just as the ground is observing it, and maintaining this constant distance.
Based on his knowledge as an aerospace engineer, Peterson offered one possible explanation for the abrupt turns performed by the UFO.
You could interpret it as if it determined it was on radar at this point. Perhaps if you're on radar, of course you can sense that in all of our fighter planes. You know when you're being tracked. As soon as you get a lock where you get this radar signal, it would seem to me that this object was interested in who's observing it, and it turned in order to find out.
When something starts to change shape like that in the air, you become very, very puzzled, because you realize that you're looking at something that appears to involve a whole new technology that we don't understand.
That's how the object started out. Like a saucer. Well, you can call that. Then it started turning into something else and end up being that dark deal that looked totally weird. See how it's like undulating, like it's in a liquefied state.
Nellis UFO are unanswered. Until the mastermind behind this craft comes forward, there is only speculation and
Oh, yeah, man. You are tripping out if you think that the reptilians are gonna come down and tell you how they made it. No, that ain't gonna happen. That technology is way too ahead of us. We can only make stiff shit. It's just recently that they're using metamateria that have all these sensors that can warp the shape of the objects. But that radical, nah.
Click.
Look how it's changed. Already it's turned into something different. Right there. It's like a diamond with a triangular deal on top at this point. And then it turned into that, like a flying rag. What's with this freaking mouse? And it's flying erratically too. It's not a straight line, it's bumping. Boom, 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 boom. It's because he's following the magnetic field of the ground. It's adjusting the what Bob Lazar called the gravity amplifiers. Of course, this one is a lot more sophisticated than the saucer he saw. Which, who knows if that thing can do that too, and they just don't know it. They haven't found a way they do that. Remember, these are entities that are far ahead of us in everything.
not been determined. Sightings forwarded a copy of the Nellis videotape to the Pentagon requesting an official response.